crooked the road that leads to a possible playoff push for Reading Football Club. Off the field issues continue to cast shadows over the club, but the team on the pitch keep rolling on with another +3, this time at mid-table monsters Peterboro. Here to discuss another glorious result on the road is Mr. Ross Webber on episode 397 of the
Mid-table monsters. I like that. Is
well, they are, aren't they?
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Now, is the mid-table monster the Posh Bosh guy who's on the that middle advertising hoarding that they've got there at the Peterborough ground?
I mean, yeah, it can be. I just think, before we get into how good we are, right? If you're a Peterborough fan and you say to anyone who likes football, I support Peterborough, I guarantee their reaction will just be,
My reaction would always just be, is Darren Ferguson still there?
That's
everything I know about Peterborough. And now the Posh Bosh advert, that really cracked me up. That's been there for a few years now. So, anyway.
Listen, I was going to start with a fact, actually. And I read this up today, 100% factual. No manager is as salty as a manager whose team has just lost at home to Reading. Did you know that?
It's it's certainly it's happened once or twice. It's happened once or twice. I remember good old Steve Evans getting upset last year when we did it to Stevenage.
Do you know, it makes me laugh because the amount of people that say that we're irrelevant, and yet when particularly when we win away, which is rare, I have to say, maybe that's why we get the reactions that we do, but. It just baffles me that these managers can't come out and go, "Do you know, we were outplayed today. Fair play to Reading. Hope everything gets sorted. See you in March or whatever." They just can't. Right. It's almost like it's just there, right? It's just there for them to say, but they can't do it. They just can't go. That was really good.
Who are post-match interviews from the manager even for anymore? Are they for the fans? Are they for the players? Are they just for the ownership group to be like, this is why you shouldn't sack me this week?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to know really who they're even talking to.
And apart from the fact we got 3 points there, I was just delighted because that bloke off TalkSport, Adrian Durham, said that Reading were the most exactly, Shrug, but he's a Peterborough fan and he said Reading's the most soulless place ever and the ground's rubbish and blah blah, and I was like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So it's one of those really, but it was a fantastic result and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the off the field stuff as well because there's there's been a few bits this week really that have come out which are surprising. Is anything surprising anymore? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to get into that shortly. Huge thanks to ZCZ Films. We established on the last pod that you can watch Valdemar's new series, The Art Mysteries, at 10:15 on Sky Arts Wednesday. The next episode, or the rerun of the next episode, is the 27th of November, which I believe, Ross, if I've got the calendar correct, it's this Wednesday.
It is this Wednesday, yes. I thought you were going to ask if it was Thanksgiving, but that's Thursday.
Not yet.
Waldemar on Wednesday, Thanksgiving on Thursday. What a week.
What a week for you, Ross. What a week. So we're going to get into the recap right now. So short break. Grab yourself a penguin bar and we'll see you in a minute.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Ross has just been complaining that I mentioned penguin bars, which are, of course, the nation's greatest chocolate bar, wrapped. And he said,
shout that. Shout that. I heard that, listeners. Just making sure. We'll move on to the recap first, but maybe we'll have to bring that back up at some point. Big shout that.
Just bring it. Listen, Ross, I mean, I had a sneaking suspicion that we'd be all right this weekend. I don't know why, but I just felt it that we were going to be okay. And we were more than okay. I think I think the stats are misleading. And as everyone knows who listens to this pod, you are the stats man. So we'll kind of talk about that in due course. But the overall performance, particularly from a midfield point of view, was very, very good. And, we've had a bit of, joking around with Peterborough in the way that they've probably presented themselves over the last few years in terms of the general club and the manager and everything else. But to go away to a club that probably will challenge for the playoffs, I would think, when they get their act together, and get in a bit of a routine. I think they're strong enough to do that.
Yeah.
To kind of get into a 2-goal lead against them was really impressive, right? Whichever way you spin it, it's a great performance and a great result for us. Correct?
Oh yeah, no, I think so. I think you can compare it to the same fixture last year, right? So that was the away 2-2 draw against Peterborough. Still with the Posh Bosh thing there. I really like that. I'm just going to keep mentioning it. And so I think that day when we came back from 2-0 down, like, yes, we felt like we had deserved it with our performance on the day, but it also felt like, oh, this is pretty good. Like we can actually come back and tie against, a decent team on the road. And this year I feel like it was more like, yeah, we should have enough to go up there and give them a really, really good game. And I think that Smith being back was important. And I think that the whole spine of the team being together this week was really important. We had I kind of want to talk about like Nibs, Smith, and Wing today, and I'll keep bringing them up. I've got other people to bring up as well, but I think that those three players have been like such quality for Reading since they joined, pretty much week in, week out. And it just puts us in a platform each week where we can, put together a good performance. We've always got three players we know are going to put in. Like, I don't know if I've ever rated any of them less than like a 5 out of 10 on the ratings. Probably not. Wings had a few this season that I haven't been a fan of, but yeah, no, I just thought it was a really good performance, and just shows how far we've come in that we got this win against Peterborough, and I've rewatched the game in about 200 clips of various players rather than actually getting to rewatch the whole game yet. But when I checked the score, midway through coaching, I wasn't surprised that we won. I was like, yeah, that seems about right. Like, we're a good team. If you're not at your game against us, even if it is away, we're going to give you trouble. And I know that there's some up and down, with the away form. But I think since last year, around about this time last year, it's sitting above a point a game. So still getting you the points that you need there or thereabouts on the table. So yeah, good performance. And again, I want to highlight just how good week in, week out those three, Nibs, Smith, and Wing, have been since they came in. And I think there's having a really strong spine like that, complemented, of course, by the centre-back pairing, by the goalkeeper. I just think these things are really important. So, yeah, good performance, but not wholly unexpected.
You did mention those three players, and I know that regular listeners know what's coming from me, and I can already see the eyes rolling, right? But I have to say this now. Charlie Savage versus Peterborough United, right? 47 touches, 1 assist, hit the woodwork once, 89% pass accuracy.
Sure.
And 6 passes into final third. Now, I'm not going to take the full credit for that. That was from a data website. We all know which one we're talking about. When does he start getting his flowers from anyone other than me? Like, honestly, like, I think Sim gave him a 7, which is big of Sim. It's very mature of him to be able to do that. But like, you talk about those players. When do we start, very briefly, because I know we've got a lot to cover in this Peterborough recap, when do we start chucking Charlie Savage into that conversation of key players for Reading Football Club?
Yeah, sure. It's tough, right? Because you're right. Like,
yeah, sure. I don't want to answer that. Ask me another question.
No. I'm going to answer your question, and everyone remembering that you can watch this on YouTube can see that I didn't roll my eyes. So
I'll show you my pint glass in a minute.
Yeah, I think having Savage on that left side of midfield, I like it because it allows us to have a left-footed player on the left side of midfield, and Nibs and Savage together were kind of almost like trading who was like furthest forward in various parts of their defensive responsibilities. So like they're pretty good. They're getting good at, if one of them steps out, the other one will like retreat and kind of hold space and cover, shadow some of the area. And like I said, I do like having a left footer on the left side of midfield. I don't think that the pass that so Savage's assist is really nice. I did a play of the game for that whole goal. It's the second goal that Reading scored. You can find that on Blue Sky. But a seam has opened up in the back line, but you've still got to hit that seam. And I don't think that a right-footed player could actually do that at that point. We saw this issue over the summer with England where, Trippier with his right foot couldn't quite hit the kind of passes down like the left side that we need, or attack the ball in the right way. And so fundamentally, sometimes it's just useful having the right, the correct sided player on their correct side. But with Savage, I agree with you that his passing is good. He certainly adds something creatively, and he's a threat in terms of hitting the ball outside of the box. The thing that we're missing there, and it's not just from Savage, it's whenever Nibs does not play in the midfield, the number of duels attempted flies down. And so Reading did a really good job within their own zone against Peterborough of keeping shots to the outside of the box. They had Peterborough had a higher proportion of their shots from outside of the box the other day. And I do think, and that's great, obviously, but they're getting towards that kind of area. And I do think that happens when Nibs isn't in the midfield. There aren't quite as many challenges going in. So Savage, I think he had something like 6 duels and he only won one of them along the ground. So that's the last little thing for him. He can dive in occasionally. He can leave Nibs having to come back and do some of that defensive work. But I do think, again, having 2 creative players on their correct side, so Savage on the left and Elliott on the right, of wing, an excellent, 6. Yeah, it's a really good midfield. We just have to be conscious of what we do lose when Harvey Nibs isn't in it.
Well, let's talk about the man, because he is the man, Harvey Nibs. He's made a big difference since he's sort of come back into the team. Had a spell out with injury or whatever. I can't remember what the injury was. Can you?
No, it was something odd, wasn't it? It was like a week or so into the season. He was suddenly gone for 4 weeks. But yeah, no, I don't quite remember what it was. But just an unfortunate time to get that injury.
I mean, from a personal point of view, he is one of my favourite current players, alongside Charlie Savage and Big Kelvin E, of course. But he, to score 2 goals is impressive anyway. But I think when you look at the finishes, when you watch the clips on Blue Sky or wherever you're watching them, we are on Blue Sky, by the way. We're live and exclusive. We're not exclusive, but we're live on that now. Both myself and Ross and Sims on there as well, and a couple of other TTE contributors, and of course the big dog itself, the Tilehurst End account, is also on Big Sky too. So give us a follow if you're on there. Anyway, I digress. What was I saying? Nibs. Yeah, the finishes were great. That the first goal, have to feel a little bit for the goalkeeper, whose name I can never pronounce. But, if you watch it back, it smashes him square in the face, like right in the mush, like point blank.
It's a nasty one, yeah.
And
yeah.
he did well to try and recover the second shot. But the rebound shot that Nibs actually scored from was instinctive. That is a real, what I call a real striker's finish. And, bear in mind, he's not a striker. That's very, very impressive. Second one, again, equally as good in terms of the angle that he had to choose from and to slot that in. He's just such a cool player, for us.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
He's a cool dude, but he's incredibly athletic. He's one of the, I think he's probably one of the fittest players at the club in terms of the ground that he covers and the distance, and just very, very good, Is there, and I'm going to kind of flip this a little bit, is there an argument to suggest that at some point Ruben abandons all of his plans and just goes, I'm just going to play Smith and Nibs up front together in a 2? Is that plausible, or is that completely shut up, Ben, move on to the next question type stuff?
No, I think that I was kind of trying to watch the out of possession structure a little bit with this most recent week, because it does change when Nibs is out on the left, or at least it feels like it does. And there were points when I almost saw like a straight up 4-3-3 out of possession, like without anything particularly fancy in terms of like pressing or anything like that. I think that if they were going to push two players forward, they'd push Chem forward as well, and they'd continue to let Nibs do the work on the left side just because of how important he is. But I think at times Reading kind of shift into the sort of like 4-2-2-2-y sort of thing that wasn't hugely successful when Reading when Sellers first came to Reading, but we do see it come back every now and again. There, like a lot of teams use 4-4-2 press. And they will have two players doing that forward pressing anyway, even if they don't have strikers in that role. Like Bruno Fernandes does it for Man U. So I think the question is kind of like, will Kelvin come back into the team when when he's not injured again, or whether will Nibs be staying out there on the left? Again, I still think that you lose a lot in terms of challenges made in the midfield, and we do seem to be a little bit down on balls won in the opposition's third this season, so we're not quite pressing as effectively as we were. I think all of this really, I don't know the answer for you right now, and that kind of speaks to there's actually a little bit of depth in the team right now. Like the team is good. Like the team are sitting level with the playoff places on points, a little bit down on on goal difference. I think there are some issues with how much XG they are conceding.
Well, don't start this again.
No, I know.
Honestly, it's like, what is it like? I don't know. I don't want to talk about Christmas because there might be younger viewers or listeners watching
it's
this.
Too early. Yeah.
Just XG, just getting the. I can't be bothered. What's the point? What is the point?
It's giving you a general sense of, the problem is. Well, so let me explain it really quick right here. Right, like there is
quickly,
very quickly. But yesterday, right, or not yesterday, but the game against Peterborough, I feel like it may have felt like Reading were under the cosh towards the end of it. And you can find out that I think it was something like 5 shots or something like that took place after the 90th minute or something like that.
Let me just go old school. Look, I've got this weekend's copy of the football paper.
Oh, so wow, there you go.
Yeah, do you know what? I've binned off, apart from that Charlie Savage thing, I've binned off the actual stats. Keep talking and I'll get to it.
He's got an actual real newspaper for anyone who isn't watching this on the YouTube channel.
You can probably hear me rustling.
Exactly. Anyway, this is why XG is helpful. It helps us see that, like, no matter despite the fact that all those like shots or whatever were going in late from Peterborough, like I said earlier, a higher percentage were from outside of the box, and Reading actually had a higher XG in the second half than Peterborough. They got beaten for XG in the first half, and then they actually beat Peterborough for it in the second half. So it just kind of like helps you see some like underlying stuff, like what's actually going on. So my concern with Reading overall for the whole season is that eventually these pretty high numbers for XG conceded are going to catch up with us, but they also might not, because Joel Pereira is just a much better goalkeeper than we've had for the last few years. And so it might not matter that we're conceding a little bit more. That might be why we're conceding a little bit more, because the team have a better sense of what they can concede as a shot and what they can't. We had this a few years ago of Raphael, whereby Paunovic's structure would kind of allow for shots from outside the box. He was like, Raphael's going to save him, so it doesn't matter. Having a decent goalkeeper lets you set up your defense a little bit differently. Anyway, sorry, what's going on in the papers?
Well, all sorts. Well, they did have 6 on target, 15 off target, and based on the game, and anyone saw the game, you'll know that, as Ross said, point out correctly, a lot of that came at the very end of the game when they were just desperate. I think they scored in the 96th
minute, 96th and they had been peppering that same location for the previous. So basically, I watched the first thing I went and watched when I once the clips had been popped into Wisecout were the shots that Peterborough had at the end, and they just keep trying the same thing, which we've seen a few times. It happened more when Button was in the team. They just go to the back post and they try a quick header from there. Eventually, it worked, because I do think Reading have some issues with defending that, but overall, not a whole lot. Thought Dorset was important to that. I think Dorset is a really quality player.
Well, he came back in. So just for anyone who wants a recap very quickly, so Pereira and goal, as we talked about, El Gato, Michael Craig, Mbenge, slight injury to him. We're slightly concerned about that at the moment. We'll see what happens there. Tyler Binden, less than 24 hours, I think it was, after international duty, he was straight into Cambridgeshire playing for the Royals. Dorset, as Ross has alluded to, Ben Elliott, Lewis Wing, Charlie Savage, and then Chem Campbell, Sam Smith, and Harvey Nibbs. So yeah, Dorset came back in. What did you make? Two questions. Firstly, what did you make of his performance? And secondly, do you think Garcia is going to be sat there going, "Come on, mate, what have I done?"
What did I make of his performance? I thought it was really good, and I think that Garcia can think what he wants, because as a left back, this was just kind of what we've been missing. I think over the
I like Garcia though. I like
Garcia too. I just think that he would be better played further forward personally. But I think that's harsh. But I think that Dorset is really, really good. Like, I think there was a point last season whereby stats with Dorset in the team versus without were quite stark. And he had really helped shore things up. He plays the position in such a different way to Garcia. He's more of an elbow back, so a player who kind of plays in that fullback position, but can kind of like settle into a back three if he needs to. And a lot of the time when Peterborough were coming back towards Reading and Reading weren't able to win that ball back, either in the final or the middle third, he would be in a structure with Binden kind of in the middle of it, which was kind of interesting. But he's a big body and he is defensively pretty impressive. He had some slides to clear the balls out of the box. Doing that also allows Michael Craig to go a little bit further forward. So they were both playing in low build-up. They were both playing within the second line of build-up. So it's kind of like a 2 and then a 3 with the fullbacks and wing in the middle of all of it. But even though they were playing in like a similar position in early build-up, you look at the heat maps from the other day, Dorset is a lot more reserved and Craig is going a lot more far forward. And I think that ability to play as an elbow back to kind of shore up the rest defense, make sure that if the opposition are running towards you, they're running towards 3 big center backs. It's more difficult to find spaces to kind of like get into the seams. I just think that Dorset allows the team to play in the way that they want to play more. And yeah, I don't think that he had as good a start to the season as he was playing last year, but based on this game, I'm very excited to have him back.
I mean, he's come a long way since Oxford away in February. I mean, that day he just looked completely out of his depth in that game. And I think again, this is testament to what not just Sellers, but the group of players around the other players, and also the coaches, in terms of not just looking at these players and casting them aside. And I know that's probably more symptomatic, or is symptomatic, of the fact that we haven't really been able to bring anyone in apart from Campbell, and we're kind of, for want of a better phrase, stuck with these players. But a lot of them have developed. A lot of them have got better. You could look at David Button, perhaps harshly. You could look at Harley Dean, and you could say, well, they haven't really progressed in the time they've been at Reading. But all the other players, I mean, look at Michael Craig. I mean, I know you still want him in midfield, but I think he's excellent at right back. I really do. And Bengay, at one point he was a liability for this football club, and now he's like first name on a team sheet. Look how well Tyler Binden is in terms of how composed he is now. Pereira, no one was really sold on Pereira. Now he's like, well, we can't have anyone else. We wouldn't want anyone else in goal if we had the choice. So there's so many players in that team. Campbell, we were on a podcast and I was like, I don't think he's any good. I don't see that. And now, what's he doing? 4 or 5 dribbles in this game at the weekend. So it really is so positive that these players are coming on leaps and bounds and they're being coached to be better. But there's a desire for them personally and professionally to be better, but also the players around them clearly want that for them as well. And that really is, people can talk about all the off-field issues they want, but when you look at that core, just got to protect that as much as possible, because it's very rare that you get that. Mm-hmm. It's really, really rare. And, positive competition, but also these players are all right. This is a good group of players. What were we going to say? Sorry.
There's definitely good recruitment that happened here, because with that core group that I was talking about earlier, they've just all been outstanding for the club for like the whole time they've been here, and so that's been hugely important to Reading having a floor that they play from each time. And obviously they still have bad results, like some of the away collapses, but in general, it's been a fairly consistent performance level now for about a year. Everything you were just talking about is a really good point. It kind of feels like enforced patience, whereby we've had to persist with a lot of imperfect scenarios, but it is bearing fruit because players have been given time to grow confidence and all of these things like that. But the main thing I was thinking as you were saying that, I was like, enforced patience, these seem like the lessons that a team learns when they have to learn them and then are immediately forgotten as soon as they have money and temptation and all of these things again. You know, these feel like hard lessons that we're learning that actually, you know, these are the silver linings of the hard lessons we're learning, right? Through this enforced patience. And we need to remember that there are silver linings as well. And I was thinking that as I was watching our team claw their way back into like the playoff spots with, you know, 4 or 5 core players and a bunch of kids. Like it's remarkable. It really is remarkable how well Sellers and their coaching staff are doing.
Oh, I've messed my paper up now. I'm just going to... Right, here you
All
go.
right, back to so, around the horn with Ben.
Yeah, it's good. This good paper. The only problem I have with it is it's gone up in price a lot. It's now £2.20, which I think is a bit steep for like a one-off. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. It's a good paper. There's some good bits in it, some nice articles. But above us currently, Wickham. Where do they come from?
Yeah, that is.
Like, what's happened there?
That is that is an odd one, isn't it? They are the team I want to beat the most now when we play them.
It's coming up. You only got a couple of weeks, and we got an opportunity to do it. That was one of the greatest days I've had in recent years. Last season, Wickham away, unreal scenes. So Wickham, Wrexham in second, Stockport, Birmingham, Huddersfield, and Barnsley all occupy the playoff spaces. Lincoln, and then little old Reading in eighth. Yeah, not clear, but by any stretch, not clear at all. I mean, there's quite a lot of congestion going on there between, well, fifth and 12th, really. Yeah, you know, there's a bit of a gap between us and Peterboro in 12th now, but other than that, it's pretty congested.
One thing that is nice, I was talking about how like I'm a little bit concerned about how much XG Reading are conceding, and it's definitely possible that, you know, we might revert to the mean a little bit and start conceding a few more goals. But we were doing that while Pereira was out of the team. And so now that he's back, you know, the fact that we hadn't managed to like hold this close to the playoffs with him out of the team for quite a while, with him back kind of like says to me, it's not bad right now. You know, we had that very optimistic pod when we were at the stadium last month, and you know, we talked about whether it was silly to be optimistic or just enjoy it. But I don't know. I still feel good about where this team is at, and they continue to improve. I do think Peterborough is a really good performance. So, yeah, you never know where this team could go.
Well, there was a tweet. I was going to say we. It's never we. It's either going to be Sim or possibly Ross. I don't use the Tilehurst Twitter account because it's too complicated. There's too much going on, really. But losing my voice again. What I would say is that, and I'll read this really interesting quirk, definitely Sim, of Reading FC's fixture list this season. He probably wrote this while he was eating a quinoa sandwich or something, knowing him. Okay. This is the League One table based solely on home games. Teams in... I can't, because it's a visual thing. I can't read it out because it's visual. Basically, what he's saying and what the fixture list is saying, that the teams that we play in the latter half of the season are mostly from 13th down, right?
Yeah.
So basically, in theory, on paper, we should be having some easier games at home, right? So, listen, if you got access to Twitter, just look. I've done it justice, but it's there. And
no, that's a good. That is a good one. Yeah. I can kind of see. Yeah, it's like a fixture difficulty thing. Like if you were playing FPL, basically. Kind of, you're not wrong. Like we've had a good start despite having like a difficult start as well. and so it really bothers me now with that Leighton Orient loss at home, because Leighton Orient are down in the relegation spots, and if we had that win, we had those 3 points, we would be in striking distance of the automatic spots, which is insane.
I know.
Like
It's
remarkable.
literally insane.
This is insane. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I know, like, the reckless optimism and positivity can grate for some people. I get it. I'm sorry. But, like, I'm very analytical most of the time. It is insane what Ruben Sellers is doing. And I do think that six players, Pereira, Mbenge, Binden, Wing, Nibs, and Smith, I think that they are crucial to all of this. I think that injuries to them would be really bad, and so Mbenge being out is an issue if he is going to be out. But it's just remarkable. Like, again, like, if we don't have that silly loss to Leighton Orient in there, we are sitting in striking distance of the automatic positions with a game in hand. It's a fantastic achievement. So
what basically the gist of the tweet was there is a clear pattern of the harder away games being in the first half of the season and the easier away games, inverted commas for those people that aren't viewing this on YouTube, the easier away games being loaded into the second half. Suggests that things might pick up on the road even more in 2025, but keeping up the home form will be tough. Do you know what I think? Slam my phone down. I think 2025 is going to be a flipping good year for this football club.
Yeah. I mean, if they can,
it can't be any worse than 2024. It can't be. But what I would say is that I just have a feeling that everything's going to change, and 2025 is going to be the year that we go, I'm really glad I stuck with it.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Things can be stitched together on the ownership front. There is a very, very solid core here to work with.
That's final question on the Peterborough game. Let's wrap that up.
Yeah.
If this result was a fish, what kind of fish would it be?
It would be a sturgeon because it's big. It's big.
Are they? Sturgeons are big, are they?
You haven't seen a sturgeon? Oh, well, you've got a fun afternoon of Googling ahead of you. Sturgeons are very, very big. Yes, they are ginormous fish that you get in, like, Chinese rivers and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Of all the things you could say currently, given everything that's going on, why would you say Chinese rivers?
Live fast, die young, I just on my mind all the time. No, I'm not sure.
Do you know what? In the good old days, I nearly got a flag of that. I nearly bought a flag. I nearly made a flag that said "Live fast, die young," and I'm delighted I didn't. Can you imagine if I still had that at the garage?
I'd like to know quite how many traffic light posts still have the stickers with that on, because I'm sure 100%. It's quite a few around Reading still have that somewhere. So anyway, what can you do? Time makes fools of us all.
It does. It really does. Do you know what's even more hilarious is that you didn't even battle eyelid when I asked you that question. You just expect this kind of nonsense now. So
especially if it's fish-based.
Fish-based. I think it would be a killer whale because it just snuck up out of the shallows and just went bang.
Yeah.
Have that, Posh. Have that, Darren Ferguson.
And it's also ominous.
Salty face. Ominous, yes, exactly. Yeah, just have it.
I like that. Perfect. All right, done. Posh, Bosh.
Posh, done.
Posh, Boshed.
That's Big John. Do you know Big John? Have you seen Big John online?
I have not seen Big John online.
Big John's Chinese order on I think it's Friday or Saturday. I can't remember. It's on Instagram.
All right, I'll have to go.
I'm sure it's him. I'm sure it's him.
I'll go.
Anyway, let's talk about an article that came out in The Athletic this week, or the end of last week, and there was, before this came out, there was some talk of these things bubbling under or bubbling over and just being there in the background of the day-to-day running of the football club. It's difficult to paraphrase. I mean, it's a quite a long article. It's a very long article, actually. Effectively, it's made for some startling reading on Rob Coig's part, who you will remember tried to buy the club, was very, very close, and does not own the club currently. So, depending on which side of the fence you fall, this is either, okay, I'm delighted with this because we've dodged a bullet, or you're either on that side of it, or you're thinking, wow, this guy really wants to buy Reading Football Club and he's going to do everything in his power to stop everybody else in the world from buying it because he's still desperately trying to do it. It's probably not for us on this podcast to kind of question the methods from a business point of view and a legal point of view. But for me, as a fan, it didn't leave me feeling hugely positive about moving forward with that individual. Personally, that's my personal opinion. I was all for him coming in. I thought it would have been a potentially good thing. But if you read those details about the article, he said he deliberately not said anything because I would still like to do the deal we agreed to. He's definitely still in for the club. He hasn't been told why the deal wasn't done. He thought he'd got the keys to it. Told my wife would be off to England again, but then I saw an email from our lawyer saying the money we'd loaned to the club had been returned. No explanation, no thanks. And then it goes on to suggest and mention parts about the women's team, about funding certain things. It's all there basically. It's all there for you to read. And if you don't have a subscription to The Athletic, then I'm sure someone will be able to find you that article somewhere.
Well, it's worth following. I'll just chip in on that regard.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I'm a paying customer of that journalistic establishment. And so this has come from an article for an interview that Coeg's done with Matt Slater, who is pretty good on all this kind of stuff. So if you want to follow Matt Slater on either Blue Sky or the other app, then I'm sure you can do that. But yeah, it's an interesting article from him, and it sort of confirms some of the rumors that were flying around, certainly to do with whether at any point some money in Coeg's deal had wanted to be withheld, in case there was any financial gremlins that are referred to in the article, were found after the sale was made. It does look like Dye's lawyers were the ones who initially drew up the sale deal. So clearly at some point they had intentions, or at least Dye had convinced his lawyers that he had intentions to sell the club within that time frame, but it was the exclusivity. But yeah, it is very interesting. I think that the money being returned to Cohig, quite as quickly as it was, and with him saying without there being a message or anything is interesting, because I don't know, it all seems a little bit confusing, to be honest, and it just kind of speaks to, again, kind of like the mess we're in now. It's over a year since Dye said he wants to sell the club, and now how many people have to be involved now to get this thing actually tangled or untangled? But yeah, I would guess that's one of the main things to take away from it, is that it doesn't look like Cohig has completely given up on purchasing the club. So that's certainly something to look out for moving forward.
I mean, how did you feel? How did you feel reading the article as a Reading fan? How did you react to what you were reading?
I just feel like for the last month or so, we've kind of been in the same state. There hasn't really been any movement forwards or backwards. And maybe this article kind of explains why that is to some extent, but it also might just be totally unrelated, because we just don't know. And so it's just more noise at the moment. Obviously the Mark Bowen interview night or whatever it was with Star didn't happen, and so that could have been more noise as well. And it's like the gods came together to instead provide us with this article from Coeg to keep the speculation going around. Overall, all of this just speaks to how difficult it is for a fan base to not have communication from the club.
Yeah.
And there's, I understand that there's very little they can say, but just the lack of an attempt to communicate recently has it's just, you can tell the club are listening. That's one of the frustrating things, but they're not saying anything. And why I say, like, you can tell the club are listening, like, you look at the ticket prices for the FA Cup. Everyone's talking about the price of them. And now today on the website, I see a new thing saying, oh, tickets for the cup are £2 and up and stuff like that. So someone's listening at the club, but they can't say anything. And it's frustrating for them. I'm sure it's very frustrating for us as fans. So how did I feel about it? A year in, more frustration. I have my opinions about Cohig, but I'll share them on my own personal social medias if I ever feel the need to do that.
Well, I mean, do you know what? One of the positives about this is that, you talk about noise. A lot of the noise has stopped. So, those accounts and those people that have been dubbed in the nose, certain other business people who I don't still want to mention, to be honest,
No need to.
have stopped talking. That there is less and less conjecture out there now, and I would take an article like that, even though I felt a little bit uneasy, quite uneasy reading it as a Reading fan. I would take an article like that every day of the week over the kind of the rumour mill going forward. So
That's fair.
There has been pressure put on the club again by Sell Before We Die. And since their statement came out last week, there's been no response from the club. Ross is right. The ticket prices remain the same. I don't think they could have backtracked, to be honest, but it would have been.
They brought them down to £2. Sorry, maybe that was a kids thing.
That's like a kids thing. Yeah, that's what we call clever advertising.
Yeah, well, they're advertising. They're going price first, so they know. They've heard that part. Is basically my point.
Tickets start from £2 if you're 4 years old.
Yeah, if you literally don't know what Reading Football Club is.
Yeah.
You've been dragged to the car park outside of Costco for 90 minutes there.
You need a fully grown adult to take you, and that will cost £15 So
right. Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, they're not lying. It's true that they are £2, but for a certain age group, it's not like
Kind of feels like when Sports Direct say it's a closing down sale, and it's like one of those three words is true.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a clever play on words. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Before we get into the mailbag, I just want to show you this, Ross, for people that are watching. So this is a pint glass. Maybe you can see it properly.
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
So it's a lion drinking a pint. It says "Made in the Ding," and it's from
good.
It's from the brewery Double Barreled.
Nice.
I'm not on any commission. I don't work for them. It's just in a great pint glass. They do it on a T-shirt as well, but it's a really, really cool image. So if you're in the Tilehurst area and you want a pale ale or stout or Keller lager, then go to Double Barreled. As I said, not on commission, not sponsoring the show, just trying to help a local business. Because I like beer.
Love it.
It says "Made in the Ding," so that's that.
Yeah, I do like
We're going to get into the mailbag. I had to do some real research for this one. We got mailbags everywhere now on X, on Blue Sky, of which we're a part of the community.
Well,
nothing on Facebook, but there never is.
Yeah.
Didn't get any emails, did we, this week either? So that's...
No emails this week, but we did a long one last week, so that's all right. So I hope he's bought his tickets now. You got to reach out and.
Oh God, I felt really awful after that because I felt like he thought I might have been laughing at him, and I wasn't. I was laughing at the idea of the match day experience. And
sometimes we get the giggles on the pod, and it's nothing to do with whoever is emailing in. It's just it is sometimes fun. But I hope you bought your tickets. And, reach out. Let us know which game you ended up going to.
And then you said, "Why are you laughing?"
Tell us about the match day experience so Ben can piss himself laughing. Anyway, we'll go from there. Oh,
stupid.
Dear.
Really
Some
stupid.
of us just like watching the football, So anyway.
Yeah. Hot dogs are good. That's all I'd say.
Hot dogs are good. All right, let's get into that mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have a short break and we'll be back.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Rs!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
The first mailbag we'll go to is on X. We've got a new graphic as well. Like Ryan's sorted us out a lovely graphic.
Yeah, It looks good.
I feel like our faces should be superimposed on the players, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I could. I feel like I do like a Two-Face thing where it's like half me, half Tyler. I think that would look good. So
Be horrible.
we'll work on that for next week. But yeah,
If
anyway,
you
YouTube guys, get on YouTube. There's lots of good stuff.
if you look quickly at the graphic, you could sort of feel like maybe Ruben's me a little bit.
Less said about that, the better. How's your Spanish?
Sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Cerveza, that's it.
There
Patatas bravas. Right. Yeah. Thomas Hill, dear sweet Thomas Hill. When you write for us again, mate? Come on.
I think he did one recently. But anyway, what's he got to say? Yeah,
he's going to Barnsley tomorrow. That's what he said.
Very nice too. Yeah, it's up there.
Because of our limited squad depth, do you worry about some players suffering from a burnout later on in the season? Yes. What about you, Ross?
I'm trying to think about how the last few weeks of the season went last year, really. I mean, like, yes and no. The team's very young.
It was glorious last year. It was fantastic. We smashed Blackpool, didn't we, in the last home game?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Delicious.
So they continue to keep pushing. I don't know. I just think this team's quite good, and I don't think that the rest of the league is that good. And I don't know. We have a lot of like weaker teams to play in the second half of the season. So do I see us falling off necessarily? Not really, and especially because Nibs and Dorset have had breaks already for injuries, so that's two important players taken care of there. I do worry about Wing and Smith a little bit, sure, because they have looked tired at times this season.
Smith's the one. Smith puts in so much. I mean, they all do, but like he's just a focal point for the team, and like we said it time and again in this formation, the amount of work and the amount of battles that he has to face, the amount of kicks and slaps and everything else he gets, it's going to take its toll. I do worry a little bit about those players, particularly those players that have had a lot of international, not even just playing the games, but traveling and being around at different camps and stuff. Like it does take its toll, moving forward.
Yeah, that's fair. I can often never tell with Wing when he's, slightly unfit or whether it's just like a point in the game where he is, out of breath and having to run again, because he's a wonderful player and really useful for our team. He's quite slow in a straight line. So it is like sometimes he'll get running and I'm like, is he hurt? Oh no, he's just slow. It's fine. Like it's just taking him a second. But I remember when I first saw him, like way back when he first started for Reading, he was working his way back from an injury, and he was even slower at that point because he was working his way back from an injury. But yeah, sometimes I get tripped out by that. I think he's a better athlete than I give him credit for, though. So yeah.
But short answer, Tom, I think inevitably those players will have some sort of burnout at some point. It's whether or not, and it's a big if, I guess, whether or not we can bring in anything extra in January. I've lost track really of what we're allowed to do. I'm assuming the answer is no, but there might be emergency loans or anything else that we could potentially, I don't know.
But here's the question. Could the team get by without Wing for a game or two at the moment? So could they play Nibs, Savage, and Elliott in the midfield?
Sure.
I think 100%. They could. Yeah. Like, I think you probably drop Elliott the deepest in that, and you play Savage on the left and Nibs on the right of midfield as the 2-8s, and I think that could work. So in theory, there's time to rest Wing. I do think though Wing just kind of loves it and he wants to play all the time. He plays in, considering that he's like the talisman player, he plays in a lot of like EFL trophy and like League Cup and FA Cup games and things like that. He just seems to want to play a lot.
Well, he's a leader as well. Remember, like, we I don't know did we ever do a recap at Newport? Maybe we did. I can't remember.
A little bit.
But that he was really important in that game because he was a leader at that point. Same with Savage and Elliott against Fleetwood in the cup game previous. They were leaders in that game. So, you need those kind of, I say seasoned professionals, but, you need those players with first team experiences to be able to bring those other players on. So, if it's not him, it's going to have to be someone else in that role. And it might as well be him if he's up for it and he wants to do it. So, hard-working bunch of players we got, really. But yeah, we do worry a little bit about burnout, Tom. Andy Taylor. Andy, I was going to ask you what the temperature of the beer was in the Dolan, but we've not been allowed into the Dolan for like 4 months, have we? Every other game has been like, there's been like an unofficial lockout at that stand. He always lets me know what it is, what's going on there. He says, have we finally turned a corner on our away form? If we have, a push for the playoffs must be achievable if we can keep the majority of the team together this coming window. Well, let's deal with the away form first. Do you think, Ross, that we are in a situation where we're able to put that to bed and go, right, it doesn't matter now?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because there's been two. Okay, so let me rephrase that. It's difficult to say because there have been 2 games already this season that have looked a lot like the away collapses that we have had in recent seasons, and make it look like part of that whole thing. That said, at this point, we've won 2 away games already this year, and probably should have won at both Birmingham and Stevenage. So we are already performing pretty well away from home this year, as we've looked at as well. The average points per game for away games since November of last year is above 1. So we are already drawing our away games, and I think that's kind of why the home form being as good as it is quite exciting, because you put those 2 things together and it is playoff form for sure. I mean, I've been saying that Reading are going to make the playoffs since before the season started, and I still
kudos. You have.
I just, and again, it's not because I think Reading are the best team ever or they don't have issues with their team. I just really don't think the bottom half of this league is that talented in comparison to players like Harvey Nibbs and Lewis Wing and Sam Smith and these kinds of guys. And, like, we've had our own issues with Sam Smith. We're coming at it from the perspective of guys who've been watching the Championship or higher for the last 20 years. In League One, Sam Smith is one of the most prolific strikers. So we just have quality players that are going to have us above, at mid-table or above, in my opinion. And then if we can get the other players playing, it just doesn't surprise me that we're pushing on like this. I know you were asking me about away form. I went way off there.
No. I mean, but I think the next part of Andy's question was about playoff pushes, and if I refer back to my physical paper, which is physically in front of me, the players that are the teams that are below us. So Bolton, Mansfield, Exeter, Peterborough, Bristol Rovers, Charlton, Stevenage, Northampton, Wigan, Rotherham, Blackpool, Crawley, and then, I mean, you're in the dead zone of Burton Albion. This is going from the bottom up. Shrewsbury, Cambridge, and Leyton Orient. I mean, of those teams, who is likely to mount a push to really go, do you know what, we're going to kick on? Maybe Charlton.
Yeah,
I mean, they've
been about there for the last few years. So, are they really? And they got rid of one of their better players, didn't they? They sold into Birmingham in the off season, Alfie May. So I don't really know. I don't really necessarily think that they'll kick on. I don't think Rotherham will stay that far down there all season. I think they may have left it too late to push on for the playoffs, but they'll fire Steve Evans some point in the next month or so, and they will kick on because they have too much talent. But that only affects us for 1 more game this year, doesn't it? So
Wigan, maybe. Their form over the last 6 games has been pretty bad.
Are we looking at names rather than the actual performances? Because, Stockport, since they beat us, have continued to play well. And I didn't expect Stockport to be doing quite so well. I had Mansfield way down there at the start of the season, and they've still held on, relatively well. So it's difficult to say, but I don't think Reading should be looking at any of those teams thinking we can't get up and above them. And again, like I said, if we had won that game against Leyton Orient, we'd be 2 points outside of second place with a game in hand. So that's the level to which Reading are capable of playing at the moment, I would say.
I'm just looking at it. I'm thinking, you would be very surprised if Barnsley, Huddersfield, and Birmingham fell away. Stockport, I don't know how. Obviously, the table doesn't lie. I haven't seen enough of them to say, do you know what, they're brilliant. And then obviously Wickham and Wrexham, and I think you're right in what you're saying, Ross. The league in general is not very good. But the problem is that there is a growing bed of consistent teams in the league now that you're looking and going, well, forget what's behind us potentially. We've got to try and displace what's in front of us. And it's down to whether or not we can keep up those, well, stupid thing to say. It's down to whether we can keep winning games and whether they start losing games. I don't know. I put it this way. I don't think playoffs is that much of a pipe dream in terms of where we currently are. I feel confident going into tomorrow night. It would be great if we get a draw out of that against Barnsley, which we'll talk about in the preview in a minute. But look, it's probably the best it's been for a long while when you consider where we were this time last year and how things were going. And then, I mean, God, think about the things I was saying at that point in terms of what I thought should happen to Ruben Sellers in terms of his position. So, you know, when you compare like for like, you know, there's no. Well, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think that at this stage in the season, that we're like a third of the way through now. Like teams have played 14 to 17 games, so we're a third of the way through the season. So the table is going to change between now and the end, but it is broadly predictive of like some trends that we're seeing, you know, in general. And if we think about it, so yeah, maybe Rotherham will mount some sort of push, but they're 9 points behind us. So that means that they're going to have to play at like an average point. Let's say like we play at like 1.8 points per game per average. That means they're going to have to play at something like 2.2, 2.3 on average to actually like catch up. Just to catch up. So we're getting to the point in the season now where enough games have been played that some of the deficits are actually going to cause teams issues in terms of catching up. Because yes, they could go on runs where they win 5 or 6 in a row or something that can really help out, but that's still 5 or 6 wins when they were already 3 wins behind us. So maybe, you know, Reading win a few more in that and they remain on top. So I think it's interesting.
Just to emphasize your point about the league, there were 2 draws, 2 0-0 draws at the weekend. And then aside from the Wrexham game and the Stockport game, every team that won only won by 1 goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shows you really, I mean, you know, Barnsley got beaten by Wigan. Bolton had to score in the last minute to beat Blackpool. Crawley 1-0 against Rotherham.
Worth noting, Birmingham lost this weekend as well. Always worth noting that.
Yeah, but they won the league, didn't they, already? So it doesn't matter, does it?
You're right, yeah. Even though they're 5 points behind, they did already win the league, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
They can do
anyway,
what they want. Salty from the Tilehurst end. Very salty.
Yeah. All right, no more newspaper. I don't feel like I'm on the set of Good.
Yeah, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the recycling bin later. And then can we keep the majority of the team together? Don't know. I think if they can see progression and they're getting games and everyone's happy, then yeah, they'd be stupid. I think they'd be stupid to go give it another 3 or 4 months and then see what happens.
Nearly every single player in the club right now knows that they're just adding dollars to their, or pounds, I suppose, to their next contract, however much it is. You know, if that's at Reading and we've been able to, you know, actually have an owner in place that can pay funds, then great. That can be where you've already settled down. But all of these players that are there now, they know that they are earning their next contract. And they're earning it through a load of minutes. So
pay wages in a timely and legal manner. Yeah, exactly.
Pay wages, provide dinner, and all of these things will be done.
Exactly. So. Thank you for that, Andy. Appreciate it, and hopefully we can get a beer update in the Dolan very soon. RFC Martyr. I think I say this every week, but I think it's Peter Martyr rebranded.
You do say this every week. We'll just say yes at this point.
What do you think of the rumours around player sales in January? And if these sales happen, what impact do you think this will have on the squad and manager? It's kind of knocked me that one a bit. I honestly feel, and you know, when we lose 3-0 tomorrow night, remind me of this. But I honestly feel that Saturday was a real turning point for this team, and it's really showing them that they can do good things in this league. And I honestly think that if Ruben was going to walk away, he would have done it by now. That's my opinion on that.
The post-Cohig stuff, that seemed like the time.
Yeah. If we turn around and go, well, do you know what? Well, all these 6 players are going in January. The 6 players that you've mentioned. I think he might go, do you know what? There's no point. But I don't see the club doing that, and I don't see the players throwing the towel in at this point. There might be people that leave in January. There might.
I think it almost helps that he made it quite clear how frustrated he was with the Femi Aziz situation in the summer window, and how he was under the impression that he would be able to bring somebody in, and then that wasn't the case until it seemed like his force of will brought Chem Campbell through the door, basically. I think if he was going to go, it would have been earlier. And I think that the fact that he did raise a bit of a stink with the Femi Aziz thing, I don't know, it's shown the club his limits, I would hope. Maybe they would think, let's be a little bit more careful. What, say again?
Managers do it all the time. It's warning shots. Higher up the pyramid, they look. If they're not able to spend 30 million on a winger, they throw their toys out the pram on.
Right. Oh, look, I've named fewer people than I can actually name on the bench today, even though I've got somebody who's earning £30,000.
Exactly.
Doing nothing. But anyway,
I think you're right. I think that kind of that little episode was positive for everyone involved, because actually, he's not just going to take this. Like, he's actually at the point where he's going to walk. And what do we need to be able to be consistent? We want. We want a manager to stay. I mean, he's turning into one of the longest serving managers in recent times. Given everything that he's been, season and a half? So
it's been a little while now. Yeah, he's getting up to the Pauno, the Pauno level. One thing to keep an eye on. No basis or anything factual or anything in this, but I wonder if the club might try to bring Femi back in January, because it's not going well for him over in Millwall, and Ruben does have that relationship with him, so it is just kind of interesting. It would depend on kind of where the club is at in the first week of January, I think, but it would make a difference, in my opinion.
We have a track record of players going and not doing very well. Tom Holmes, Tom McIntyre, Nelson Abbey.
He's doing all right, isn't he? I've heard reasonable things about Holmes. He's doing okay.
McIntyre's not doing so well.
Wow,
Nelson Abbey's the kicker. Yeah. And I don't think Nelson Abbey will get back in our side currently. I really don't. He'd be lucky to make the bench.
I think Nelson Abbey might make it back into our side at the moment for Mbengue.
All right.
The Abbey that we saw last year.
He was a great player. He was a great player, but again, I just think with these players, they've seen so many of their peers in recent times go on to other clubs and not do well. They just haven't done well. And
the flip side of that is Josh Laurent. I'll give you that's the flip side one. Josh Laurent has had a nice little career since he left us. He's with Burnley now. He's not playing week in, week out, but you don't if you're actually like a team with depth that can afford to pay for multiple players to play in different positions. Josh Laurent's been continued on the upward trajectory he was on while he was with us, I would say. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. Like Rinomhota really fallen off, like we just said. Aziz is fallen off, Abby's fallen off, Omar Richards has fallen off. Lots of players who have left Reading and not necessarily found that the grass is greener.
I mean, the only exceptions to that are obviously Elise. He's playing for a little club called Munich.
He could have gone anywhere. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like we talked about a few months ago, just star boy.
Yeah, and the other one who I don't know if we're allowed to mention, but little Icelandic chap who did quite well after he left the club. So, on the pitch anyway. But aside from that, I can't. We could do a podcast on that. What happened next? Who did well and who didn't?
Forever, honestly.
Yeah, what happened next?
Anyway.
But yeah, I think that's where we're at really with that at the moment. RFC Martyr. Final one on X from Alistair. It seems to me that Reading do really well against teams who try and play out of the back, and we can press well. How do we fix our weaknesses that seem to be when teams are more direct and getting behind the fullbacks and get crosses in?
I think that having Dorset in the team helps that, basically. That's kind of what we talked about earlier. I think there is a difference between having Dorset versus having Garcia at left back. Dorset's just a little bit more proficient at playing, again, in that elbow back kind of role. So kind of playing as a left back, as a full back, but also being able to drift into almost like more of a left center back sort of role as well. So when the team are using their rest defense, so, they're setting up a structure so that if they lose the ball, they are not immediately in a very vulnerable position. Dorset's very useful on the left side of defense for that. And I think that goes a long way, because just having a bit more of a canny player, as well as, look at them physically, right? The two of them together, Garcia next to Dorset. Who do you want to do your running against as a winger? I can tell you right now, it's Garcia. I don't want anything to do with Dorset and the 50 pounds of muscle he contains on his shoulder.
He's
blades.
a big boy. He's a real big boy.
His shoulders are insane. Can you imagine being shoulder barged by Jerry or Dorset? So
I'm
just thinking like
being hit by a monster truck.
Right. And so this pass that kept beating Garcia over and over again, it's a seam whereby the sort of like the 8 or whatever will play the ball in between Bindon and Garcia for the winger to run onto on the other side, right? And the last thing you have to do there is you have to step across the defender to make sure that they have to hold up a little bit and they can't take that ball off you immediately. Step across Garcia and you might get a shoulder to shoulder that you probably win. You step into Jerry or Dorset and you don't have full balance, you are hitting the floor. You're not getting close. And so I think after you try that once or twice, you stop trying that pass and that blunts the attack. And I just think that Dorset is just, I think he'll help with the goals coming in from crosses behind the fullbacks. Hopefully that is the case.
Good question, though. Thanks for that, Alistair. I'm really sorry. I keep, my voice, honestly, do you know what I think what's happened? I think I've had too much coffee today.
Okay.
And I had cheese at lunchtime, and I think it just strips the vocal cords. Obviously, I didn't have cheese and coffee together because that would just be barbaric. But I had a cheese roll, which was very nice, I have to say. But I think it's just completely stripped my vocal cords. It's not even a cough. I don't know what it is. That's why I keep making.
Your diet sounds really odd, mate. Cheese, coffee, and penguin bars. Jesus.
I like satsumas as well. Satsumas are good.
Yeah.
I like to go for what I call the 1970s lunchbox. So I'm sort of coming out of a war period where I still think that it's kind of
1970s. What the Falklands? What's going on then?
It takes a long time to recover. Put it that way.
Right.
But yeah, cheese rolls, penguin bars. What was the other thing? Coffee. Satsumas. Job done.
Satsumas. Very nice. Job's a good one. Sounds lovely.
Right, we're over on Blue Sky now. In case you hadn't got the hint, follow us on there. And Bobbins, who has completely jettisoned X. He's not on X anymore.
Yeah,
he's not there. He's just left.
Really, I only have the account active there so that you guys can tag me. So come on over to Blue Sky.
It's still worth having a little look on X. But anyway, whatever. Talking of food, Bobbins says, "What is?" As in capital letters IS, the naan of choice with a chicken pathia. Do you know what a chicken pathia is, Ross?
Yeah. Come on now. I still got my curry chops. They haven't left me. There's a very good Indian place in Portland that we go to pretty frequently. So yeah, the answer is bhatura. Bhatura is my favorite type of naan. Have you had that? Bhatura is deep fried naan, and it is. I almost swore on the podcast for the first time. It has nothing to do with how Reading play or anything. It's to do with how good this particular kind of naan is.
It's deep fried.
Yeah, but it's deep fried naan. It is really good. I recommend it. It's Bhatura. Look it up and get some for next time.
So it's like a basic naan bread, but they just deep fry it, so it's like crispy on the outside.
Yeah, and it doesn't go completely greasy like you would expect. It kind of just naan bread's almost like a creamy whitey sort of color, whereas bhatura is more of like a browny caramelly sort of color because it's been the edges have been fried. When it's Thanksgiving week, so when you fry up the edge of a turkey, because some people deep fry their turkeys as well, and you get that sort of brown. Why
would you deep fry a turkey? How big is the?
I'll share some videos of that on Blue Sky this week. This is turning into a very long mailbag, but people deep fat fry their turkeys here, and they
That's
drop
insane.
them into. It is insane. People burn their houses down every year doing this, and they drop the turkey with a chain into a vat of just like boiling fat, basically, and they cook it like that. I have heard that it is absolutely delicious.
It
but
must be so dry when you do that, though.
no, I don't think it is. I think that's the thing. Like, I think you're sealing all the juices in. So anyway, yeah, America's a funny place.
Right, so you're going with whatever you just said. Do you know? I actually prefer a naan over rice these days.
Yeah, that's I would agree with that. Yeah, I'd rather.
What would I have with it? Well, see, I always have a chicken dansak, which isn't a million miles removed from a chicken pathia.
Okay.
Okay. I would have Peshwari naan.
Okay, that's because
I like the sweetness of it. It balances it really well with the chicken dansak that I do tend to eat. But failing that, I'd probably get a garlic naan. I don't know. I'd always go Peshwari naan, but if for some reason they were like, no, you can't have that, I'd have a garlic naan.
Yeah, yeah. That's the only thing I missed from Twitter, by the way, is that there was that guy on there who makes curries like once a week or whatever, and he just makes them at home. I like home cooking guys, and he's a home cooking curry guy. Anyway, so that's all I missed.
There's levels to the game, though, isn't it? Doing a home cooked curry like that is pretty decent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, final one then on Blue Sky. Teacher Liam. Nice name. When was the last time things seemed so good?
Oh yeah, I would say it was during the Pauno season, wasn't it? When we were top of the championship, and we had started with like 6 wins or something like that, and then Mayte scored in like 15 seconds into that Blackburn game, and it was like that was the point where I was like, right, what is happening? Like
the Blackburn game was chaos, yeah, and
that
then
was absolute chaos, yeah. That was a mad game.
And then it all fell apart when we went to Barnsley, ironically. And
there was that awful Lucas Chalmers. So anyway, the first half of the first Pauno season is the correct answer to this question.
That was COVID though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So I guess, if you're someone who's not watching from afar always like me, then maybe it was as far away as the Jaap Stam year. I don't know, but some people don't like that year. So
it was COVID, wasn't it? Because he didn't have a game in front of fans until that Forest game in December when there was only like 2,000 of us in there.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was COVID year. But yeah, I would say that's when, at least for me, last time it was this positive was when we won all those games and Ovia Jaria looked like a magician.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. We went to Derby, didn't we? First game of the season and just battered them.
Battered them.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point. I mean, I think it's wrong to say we didn't think things would go south, because at that point he was just chucking money around and bringing players in and all the rest of it. So I think that's probably a fair shout, actually. Before that, I mean, I was a huge Jaap Stam fan anyway, and I didn't have a massive issue with his brand of football. So yeah, probably those ones. But it's a good question. It is a good question. I think it's quite nice that we've had something like that, because it seems like things are sort of perceptions are turning a little bit, and there's a little bit of positivity there. So good question, Liam. Thanks for that. We're going to move to a brief preview. Off to Oakwell tomorrow night, as in we're recording this Monday, so if you're listening to it tomorrow, then it will be tonight. That makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, we do this every week in terms of days, but we're playing Barnsley next, and we're going to review that or preview that even right now.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Right, welcome back to the final part of episode 397 of the Tilehurst podcast. I paused there because I couldn't remember what the name of our actual podcast was. Ross, we go up to Barnsley, the North. The North remembers, if you are a Game of Thrones fan. Currently in 6th position, played 16, 26 points. We are a game behind them in 15th. 15 games played, rather, level on points. Lost at the weekend to Wigan. They were at home against Wigan as well. Didn't seem to have too much going for them in that game. I mean, they had a higher percentage rate than Wigan, 57 to 43, 17 shots off target in that game. I mean, that's got to be one of the highest from the weekend, surely. I think it is.
Loads off target though, so it's what you call, when you're losing 1-0 at home against a team you should be beating. That's what you call desperation time, when you just start shooting anything that looks vaguely attractive from 40 yards or in.
I mean, they're kind of, what are they, 6th, 7th in the form table over the last 6 games. What do we think? First of all, they're still with us. Does he stick with the same team, injuries permitting, that we had on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's anybody that needs dropping. I thought that it was a good performance overall, and until you have a particular issue, and the only thing you could really complain about, we talked about, is the amount of XG conceded versus Peterborough, but it still took until the 96th minute for one of those, goals to go in, and that goal did provide a decent little whack of it too. So I don't think they need to change anything, because I think that it was a pretty barnstorming performance in the first half against Peterborough, and then the second half they did what they needed to do. They were, relatively professional, I think. So I don't necessarily know if we're going to get another glorious win out of this one, because you'd think that Barnsley are going to be wanting a response after their loss at the weekend, and they are a reasonable team. They made it to the playoffs last year, and they're up there again. So it's not going to be any, this is not one of those games I keep talking about where, the league's not very good and we can just go there and probably win. I think a point would probably be fine here, especially after a decent result against Peterborough. Because if you said, we're going to go to Peterborough and Barnsley and get 4 points, I think most people would be happy. So, yeah, I think that a win is doable for Reading, given the way that the team are playing right now. I think Reading can beat anyone right now, but I think that a draw would be perfectly fine. And it is worth noting real quick. Sorry, man. Back three for Barnsley. Reading have had some issues against back threes this year. It's the first time we've faced one with Jerry or Dorset rather than Garcia for the first time. First time we faced them in a little while with Dorset rather than Garcia. So, I'd like to see how that affects how we attack that formation.
I guess the key question is really the fitness of Mbenge. And if he doesn't start, who comes in for him? Does he stick? Or I say stick. Does he drop Dean in there? Does he give Holzman a bit of a baptism of fire in the league? Kanu obviously came on Saturday for Mbenge, I believe.
And then Garcia goes back out to the left. Because that would probably be the players who have played the most. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Harley Dean as well, but I think my expectation would be that they push and they try and get Mbenge good to go for that game. Maybe he plays 70 minutes and Dean plays the last 20. And then they know that they have the FA Cup fixture, at the weekend. And that means that they can, maybe play Kanu and Dorset or whoever in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, that Harbour Town game is probably a little bit out of our reach in terms of the preview right now. However, tickets are still available, obviously. I need to buy mine, actually. It's reminding me. I still haven't got mine. Stupid.
I heard they start at £2.
There is a rumour that's actually going to happen. A bargain at the price. Look, I mean, tomorrow night is a good test, and it's not one that I am particularly worried about at the moment. Of course, we're on the end of an adverse result. I don't think that massively changes the complexion of where the fan base is at. Personally, I think Saturday was a really big culture shift, and I hope it continues. Be great, as you said, to get a point or above in that game tomorrow night. But yeah, I just don't think that this team are playing with any particular fear at the moment, and I think that that's a real positive, and that leads us, a positive result tomorrow would really tee us up nicely for the weekend, which is a game that we all want to win as Reading fans to get through to the third round of the Cup. So, look,
I've been saying a few times during this, if we'd won that Leyton Orient game, we'd be in sniffing, we'd be in touching distance of the automatic places. We'd have that game in hand, and we'd be 2 points outside. If we go to Peterboro and Barnsley in the course of 4 days and we beat them both, then it would be deserved to be sniffing around those automatic promotion spots, in my opinion. So it's the difference between
sniffing and not sniffing.
No, it's a difference between sniffing and not sniffing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they go, I'd be perfectly happy with a point. I won't be super upset with a loss, but if they go and get a win, really start having a think about how far this team could go, I would say. Watch them lose 4-0 now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those people that aren't going up to the game, I think it's on Sky. Sky, not Sky Plus. That's the recording thing. You know what I mean? The Sky Sports thing.
And people I'm back on the ratings, so that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So come get your ratings on Blue Sky, and I'm sure Sim will post them on Twitter as well. But I'm excited to actually be able to watch the match when it's happening. Rather than
it should be all right.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're in a kind of a buoyant mood. The Royals are in amongst it, which is great, in the thick of it. Which is fantastic for once, and we're looking up rather than down on the pitch, certainly, which is a wonderful feeling. So long may that continue. We will be back either after the Harbour Town game, directly after that, or Monday evening. We'll be back early part of next week anyway to wrap up the Barnsley game, and of course the FA Cup second round game at home to non-league opposition. He says, grimacing and sucking in breath as he does that. Have a really good week, everybody. If you're going up to Barnsley, stay safe, enjoy it, try and bring back some points for us. Ross, thank you so much for your time once again. Have a wonderful Monday evening.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to all the American listeners, because I know there's a few of you other than me as well. So
happy Deep Fried Turkey Day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you are a Reading fan in America, right, can you send us either via email or just on our social media accounts some images of what you're doing? Potentially Reading themed Thanksgiving would be fantastic. Yeah. And if you're not, as a Reading fan, what are you thankful for? How about that?
Right.
Leave
I like
that as a thought nugget. Yeah,
Perfect.
Maybe we'll get that out on the socials as well.
Nice. And remember, everyone, you can eat more food if you stagger it through the day. So enjoy it, but enjoy it by being disciplined.
Exactly. Yeah. True words were never spoken. Have a lovely week, everybody. Happy whatever you're doing. And we will see you next time on the Tilehurst podcast. Episode 398 coming up for you in a few short days' time. Take care, all the best, and come on, you R's.